Welcome to EPG Pathasala. I am K.P. Rao, Professor, Department of History, University of Hyderabad. Under the subject Indian Culture, we are going to learn the module, that is in Principles and Methods of Archaeology, we are going to learn the module Reconstruction of Past Environment. So when we talk of the past environment, first of all, we have to learn about the history of the Earth. So Earth has a very long past, that stretching back to nearly 4.5 billion years, or 450 crore years. And during this long period, great changes have occurred in this long past. So the Earth's past is divided into various geological periods, starting from the Precambrian era and the next Cambrian era, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic eras. So these eras are again subdivided into various periods. The last geological period, that is the Cenozoic era, is again subdivided into tertiary and quaternary periods. So the tertiary period is the oldest period and quaternary period is the most recent period. So quaternary is again divided into Holocene and Pleistocene, and tertiary is divided into Pliocene, Miocene, Oligocene, Eocene, and Paleocene. So these are the subdivisions basically depending upon the kind of climate that was prevailing in the past. For study of the Indian culture or for understanding the culture of the humans, the last phase, that is the Cenozoic, and its last phase, that is the quaternary period, is the most important period. As I was telling, quaternary is again subdivided into two periods, that is the Holocene and the Pleistocene. So Holocene period is the most recent period, and at present we are in the Holocene period. And relatively Holocene period is a warmer climatic condition, whereas the previous period, that is the Pleistocene period, is a very cold climatic period, and hence it is also known as the Ice Age or the glacial period. So this glacial period is also again subdivided into four sub-periods, that is Gunj, Mindal, Riss, Womb. And Womb is the last glaciation or the most recent glaciation. So this subdivision, that is the four subdivisions, were required because the climate on the Earth has been altering between very cold periods and slightly warmer periods. So as I was telling, during this cold climatic period, which is divided into four climatic periods, like a Gunj, Mindal, Riss, Womb. And during this ice ages, heavy snowfall was occurring and the temperatures were very down. So these periods were also known as the stadials, that is the cold climatic periods were known as the stadials, and then the hotter climatic periods were known as the interstadials. So when we say that four ice ages were there, that naturally means the climate was altering between cold and hotter climatic conditions. So that is why they were divided into Gunj, Mindal, Riss, and Womb. And various studies have revealed that these four ice ages, each one of them was lasting for about 2 lakh years. That means about 6 lakh of years, that is Gunj, Mindal, Riss, Womb, have persisted, and Womb being the last ice age was succeeded by the next climatic period, that is the Holocene period, which is a warmer climatic condition. Scientists have given various reasons for this altering climatic conditions, that is especially the dropping down of the climate of the temperatures on the Earth. So they have proposed different theories. They have considered sunspots, or the cosmic dust, or eccentricity of Earth's orbit, or the precession of the Earth's rotation were considered as the reasons for dropping down of the temperatures. So let us take up one by one these theories regarding the very cold climatic conditions. So this the first theory, that is the sun's radiation. It has been proposed by some scientists that the sunspot activity, which is usually witnessed in the solar system or in the sun, was probably the reason for bringing down the temperatures on Earth, because the radiation that is received by the Earth usually depends on the radiation that is emitted by the sun. So if sunspots activity is more in a particular period, since the sunspots are colder regions compared to the other regions, Earth receives very less radiation from sun. So they propose that because of the sunspots, the temperature on the Earth has come down. And then the other theory is eccentricity of the Earth's orbit. So eccentricity in the sense, Earth has a near elliptical orbit around the sun. So they propose that due to some external reason, that is some big celestial body coming nearer to the solar system, due to its gravitational pull, the Earth has been pulled little bit away from its usual orbit, and because of this distance, the radiation was reduced, and it led to the cold climatic conditions on Earth. And then they also have proposed that the cosmic rays, cosmic dust was one of the reason. So this theory says that the whole of solar system and its planets have gone into in its rotation in the galaxy, they have gone into a region of cosmic dust, and because of the dust, the solar radiation was obstructed and the temperatures on the Earth were brought down. So, and they also have proposed that the precession of the Earth's orbit, that is, precession is usually the axis of the Earth's or any object's rotation. So this, if there is a change in the axis of the rotation, then it leads to some regions receiving very less temperature on the Earth. So they say that the precession of the Earth has changed during this period, and that has led to the bringing down of the temperatures on the Earth. So these are the various theories that try to explain why the climate on the Earth planet was cooled down, especially during the Pleistocene period. So now let us see the effects of this cold climatic conditions on the geomorphology, that is on the face of the Earth. What all changes have occurred, that we will learn now. So this we have to learn the geomorphological changes based on the regions, because the changes that were occurring in tropical regions were different, and the changes that were occurring in the temperate zones were different. So let us first learn the kind of changes that were occurring in the tropical regions. So the tropical regions are usually the regions lying between 23 degrees 30 minutes north and south of equator. So usually the tropical regions receive more radiation from the sun. So during the Pleistocene period, because of this altering climatic conditions, what was happening is during the colder climatic conditions, it was relatively drier period, but in the warmer climatic periods, there used to be heavy rainfall. So because of this altering heavy rainfall and less rainfall, the various changes have occurred in the geomorphology of these regions. So the periods of intense rainfall were known as the fluvial periods, and the periods of lesser rainfall were known as the antefluvial periods. So these drier cycles were known as the antefluvial periods. So during the fluvial periods, because of the heavy rainfall, several changes have occurred. That is, one of the effect is transportation of the sediments. So when heavy rainfall was occurring, because of the heavy flows, the sediments that are located especially in the interior regions of the lands were transported to the coastal regions. So because especially because of the transportation of heavier minerals like the hematite or the iron ore, etc., what happens is during the tidal action, this heavier mineral material is deposited on the coastal regions, and it has led to formation of laterites during this period. And also this heavy rainfall also resulted in terrace formation. Terrace formation means because of the heavy rainfall, because of the transportation of the sediments, what was happening was the land was getting eroded. The land was getting eroded, and because of that, the level of the land was going down, especially in the river valleys. Because of the excessive flows, degradation, that is the transportation of the sediments was occurring, and this erosion or degradation was known as the degradational activity. So during the degradational activity, a degradation terrace used to be formed. And similarly, during the lean periods, that is during the antefluvial periods, when the flow in the rivers is reduced, it used to result in deposition of the sediments in the in various regions, especially the valleys. So because of the deposition, it used to result in aggradational terraces. So the terrace formation is one of the major effect during the Pleistocene periods. Usually the human activities, that is the culture, etc., are influenced by these terrace formations, because the humans and other animals tend to usually confine their activities more to the banks of the rivers. So this terrace formation is very important in study of the prehistoric cultures, etc. So the next climatic zone is the temperate zone, which lies between 23 degrees 30 minutes and 66 degrees 30 minutes north and south of south latitudes. So during this Pleistocene period, the temperate zones experienced heavy snow formation. So this, because of the heavy snow formation, what was happening was whatever water that was evaporating from the seas and the land, it was getting locked up in the form of ice in the temperate zones. And because of that, since large amount of water was getting locked up in the temperate zones, the sea levels have gone down considerably, and more land was exposed during the Pleistocene period. So due to these extreme cold conditions, what has happened is several species of plants and animals also have perished. The animals and plants which could not adapt to the changed conditions of these cold climatic conditions have perished. And those animals which could adapt, they have brought several changes, physical changes in their anatomy. So this that was one of the effects of these cold climatic conditions. So the other major effect was big rocks were crushed due to the pressure exerted by the ice. So usually what happens is when the water loses its temperature from 4 degrees onwards, the water starts expanding. So usually ice is lighter than water. So because of this expansion, what happens is whatever rocks or the stones that got embedded in the ice, because of the expansion, the ice or the water exerts tremendous pressure on the stones, and the stones were crushed into smaller stones. So that changed, that brought a lot of changes in the face of the earth. And also some of the big rocks were transported to long distances. That is, especially they were transported to regions where the rocks were not at all there in the earlier periods. So what was happening was big rocks were getting embedded in the thick ice sheets, and they were getting, since the ice also flows following the slope of the earth, the rocks also were transported along with the ice, and they were transported to several hundreds of kilometers, and sometimes we find rocks in regions where there were no rocks in the earlier period. So that also was one of the change that has occurred. And another important development was the formation of the U-shaped valleys. So since the rivers, the water in the rivers was consolidating into ice, so whatever stones and rocks that were getting embedded in the in this ice, they were being carried by the flow of the river or the flow of the ice. And since the rocks are embedded at the bottom of the ice, it used to scrub the bottom of the river, and that was causing the valley to get something like U-shaped valleys. So U-shaped valleys were formed during the Pleistocene period. So these were some of the important effects that were evident during the Pleistocene period. And as I was telling, the life and culture of the humans was greatly affected by the changes in the environment. So the effects of the climate on the human cultures differ from region to region. So the study of the past climate is known as paleoclimatology. So for understanding the past climatic conditions, we use various kinds of scientific techniques. So reconstruction of the environment is an important aspect in the study of the human cultures, or in archaeology. Reconstruction of the past climate is an important aspect. So for reconstructing the past climate, we use different kinds of techniques like pollen study, or the stable isotope analysis, or the study of the sediments, rock formations, or the dendroclimatology, that is study of the tree rings extracted from the plants or the trees that were living in the past to understand the climatology. So like that, we use various kinds of techniques in reconstructing the past. As I was telling, for stable isotope analysis, samples are also collected, especially from the caves or the cave deposits which have stalactites and stalagmites. Stalactites are the formations, especially of the calcium carbonate formations that occur because of the dripping of the water from the cave ceiling. So the calcium deposits gradually form cone-like formations hanging from the cave, which are known as the stalactite. And the same dripping water sometimes causes the calcium deposit to form some kind of cone from the floor of the cave upwards. So such formations are known as the stalagmites. So the stalactites and stalagmites, which form over a period of time in a very slow process, they embed the kind of gases that are present in the environment. So in stable isotope analysis, if we can extract these gases, especially the various isotopes of oxygen, then it is possible to reconstruct the environment using the stalactite and stalagmite deposits. So let us take one after these techniques. The pollen analysis, for example, pollen is material that is produced by all flowering plants. So this pollen is a very microscopic material, and the pollen is produced in millions. And each and every species of plants have their own pollen. So the shell of the pollen has different shapes. So that means we can easily identify the species to which a particular pollen belongs. So what we have to understand is that the kind of vegetation that is present in a particular region basically depends on the kind of climate. For example, the kind of vegetation that is present in arid zones is different, semi-arid zones is different, or in tropical regions it is different. So that means if you know the kind of species that are available or that are surviving in a particular region, then you can know the climate of that region. So based on this information, the pollen analysis is devised. So in pollen analysis, what we do is we collect the pollens from the habitational layers, that is the excavation layers, and also from the ice cores, that is the ice cores drilled from usually the polar regions, or otherwise they are also collected from the lake beds and the rock cores drilled from the lake beds. So these the pollens are the fossilized pollens collected from this kind of material helps us in understanding what kind of vegetation was present in a particular period, and it helps us in reconstructing the environment of that period. So the stable isotope analysis is usually carried out on the samples collected from the stalagmites and stalactites, or otherwise from the ice cores. So usually when the when the snowfall occurs, along with the water, air is also trapped in the ice, and then it is consolidated or compressed in the ice sheets. So in the polar regions, we can collect ice cores going back to several millions of years. So from such ice cores, if we take the air samples, then usually we can analyze what is known as the stable isotope analysis. Especially, for example, like oxygen. Oxygen has various isotopes, especially the heavier isotopes like O16 and O18, oxygen 18 and oxygen 16 are used in stable isotope analysis. So it is known that usually the stable isotopes, the heavier isotopes evaporate lesser than the lighter isotopes. That means the lighter isotopes evaporate at lower temperatures than the heavier isotopes. So that means the concentration of lighter isotopes in the environment increases as the temperature increases. So by calculating the proportion of these stable isotopes, we can reconstruct the environment. So other technique that is used in reconstruction of the environment is dendroclimatology. So in dendroclimatology, what we do is we study the tree rings. So usually the trees, as they grow, they form rings in the trunk, the growth rings in the trunk of the tree. So the thickness of the ring depends on the kind of climate that was prevailing. In lean seasons, there will be smaller or thinner ring, whereas in good rainy season, when the excessive rains are there, the ring formed is thicker. So that means the study of the tree rings can tell us the environmental conditions that were prevailing in a particular period. So in dendroclimatology, we collect the samples from very old trees, or the samples of the trees, wood, or even from the charcoal, and then the samples are used for studying the tree ring pattern, which helps us in reconstructing the past climatic conditions. So the other technique that is used is the study of the rock and sediment formations. So usually the rocks and sediments are much affected by the climatic conditions and the rainfall conditions. So the transportation of the sediments to various regions and consolidation of these sediments into different rocks. A study of the layers of these sediments helps us in understanding the climatic conditions that were existing some millions or even billions of years ago. And then the other technique used is paleontology. Paleontology is basically study of the ancient life forms, both plants as well as the animals. As I was telling earlier, the anatomy of the animals especially have altered, or they have tried to adapt by bringing some changes in the structure of the body. So study of these changes, because different animals were having different kinds of anatomical structure. Like one simple example is the mammoth. So the elephants during the Pleistocene period, because of the cold climatic conditions, they have developed fur on their body. So the mammoths were having thick fur on the body to protect themselves from the cold climatic conditions. So a study of the fossils helps us in understanding the past climatic conditions. These are the various kinds of techniques that are used in understanding the past climatic conditions. So to summarize the lesson, today we have learned the geological history of the Earth, which is divided into various periods, and the changing climatic conditions over a long period, and then the influence of these changing climatic conditions on the cultures of the humans, and then various theories proposed for understanding the reasons in the change of the climate, and why during this cold climatic conditions, how the face of the Earth, that is the geomorphology of the Earth, was affected especially in the two climatic zones, that is the temperate and tropical climatic zones, and then the different kinds of changes that were occurring in these tropical zones. And then lastly, we also have learned the various techniques that are used in reconstructing the past environment. So thank you very much for watching this video.